it again, in thunder and lightning, or in rain.
When the hurly-burly's done, when the battle's lost and won, that will be ere the set of sun.
Where the place?
Upon the heath.
There to meet with Macbeth.
This film deals with Macbeth, but it deals with it in a special way. I am by profession an actor and a director, and I offer here my interpretation of the play as I see it. Shakespeare, of course, was a man of the theatre. He wrote his plays not for the library, but for the stage. As an actor himself, he depended upon actors, on their gestures, their inflections, their pauses, emphasis, to make clear not everything perhaps that he intended, but at least one powerful and moving interpretation. Now, I do not ask you to accept my interpretation as the final truth. Indeed, 5 years from now, I might conceivably have a radically different point of view. Of all Shakespeare's tragedies, Macbeth is probably the most puzzling. What does it say? What is its chief theme? Thou shalt not kill. Ambition makes men do deeds of dreadful note. Life is meaningless, a tale told by an idiot full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. And what of its principal characters? Is Macbeth a villain or a hero? Are we to identify ourselves, I mean our own human nature, with a man and a woman who could plot and carry out the ruthless murder of a seemingly good and gracious king? And what of the text? Practically all scholars see at least some evidence of rewriting by another hand. There are seeming inconsistencies, obscure passages, spurious scenes, and it is my guess, some scenes that are missing. Still, in spite of all this, Macbeth remains one of the most fascinating of all Shakespeare's tragedies. The first problem a director of Macbeth must face is this: what role are the witches to play in his production? They are sometimes presented on the stage as goddesses of fate, supernatural beings who control Macbeth's future and against whom he is powerless.
All hail, Macbeth! Hail to thee, Thane of Glamis!
Oh, hail, Macbeth! Hail to thee, Thane of Cawdor!
All hail, Macbeth, that shalt be king hereafter.
What else can be made of the witches? In the 16th century, belief in witchcraft was widespread. King James himself wrote a book about witches, and it seems certain that Shakespeare wrote Macbeth for presentation at James's court. Another possibility, then, would be to present the witches, as it were, in a King James version. We are not to doubt their supernatural powers. Besides concocting fearful witch broths and sailing the sea in sieves, the witches are able to foreshow things to come, to predict but not to control the future, to influence Macbeth's actions but not to determine them. There is a difficulty here, however, for a modern audience. How long can you, for example, suspend your disbelief in witchcraft? Why not then present the weird sisters in this fashion?
Where hast thou been, sister?
Killing swine.
Sister, where thou? The sailor's wife had chestnuts in her lap, and munched, and munched, and munched. Give me, quoth I, around thee which the rumped runyon cries. Her husband's to Aleppo gone, master of the tiger. But in a sieve I'll thither sail, and like a rat without a tail, I'll do, and I'll do.
I'll give thee a wind.
Thou'rt kind, and I another. I myself have all the other. Look what I have.
Tell me, show me.
Here I have a pilot's thumb, racked as homeward he did come.
A drum. A drum. Macbeth doth come.
The witches, then, can be shown on the stage simply as poor, deluded women, hideous and ragged outcasts, full of spite and mischief. But you might ask, given such an interpretation, what of their prophecies which prove as they turn out to be true? For instance,
All hail, Macbeth. Hail to thee, Thane of Cawdor. All hail, Macbeth, that shalt be king hereafter.
they have been skulking about the battlefield in the darkness and fog, robbing the slain soldiers, perhaps, picking up rumors. Macbeth, the great nobleman, is victorious. The king has already named him Thane of Cawdor. He will surely reward him even more handsomely. The Scottish monarchy, it must be remembered, was not hereditary. Macbeth, the king's cousin, was the greatest of the Scottish thanes. Why should he not be king hereafter? It is thus that I would present the weird sisters when they first meet Macbeth. They are women who believe themselves to be witches, and Macbeth and Banquo also believe in their supernatural powers. Later, on a more imaginative level, I will show how they become creatures of Macbeth's fantasy, like the air-drawn dagger and Banquo's ghost, like the voice that cried, "Sleep no more, Macbeth does murder sleep," creatures of his diseased imagination. Imagination. This, of course, is the key word for Macbeth's character. Macbeth is perhaps one of the most difficult of Shakespearean roles to play. He must be a soldier, a warrior capable of unseaming a man from the nave to the chops, in other words, of splitting him neatly in two with his broadsword. He must be capable of murdering a king and then of stabbing the king's drugged and defenseless guards. All this. And yet he must be also a sensitive, imaginative man. In some strange way, a poet. The tragedy of Macbeth is a poetic drama, and most of the characters speak in verse, but none with the imaginative intensity of Macbeth. Notice the imagery which floods his mind as he contemplates the murder of King Duncan.
Besides, this Duncan hath borne his faculties so meek, hath been so clear in his great office, that his virtues will plead like angels trumpet-tongued against the deep damnation of his taking off, and pity like a naked newborn babe striding the blast, or heaven's cherubim horsed upon the sightless couriers of the air, shall blow the horrid deed in every eye, and the tears shall drown the wind.
The king, in one sense, is the decisive element in the play, or rather, I should say, the power of the king, the Elizabethan conception of the monarchy. Most Elizabethans did not think of power as coming from the people. They thought of it as coming down from above, from God, to them the ultimate source of power. The king has the power, they said, because God gave it to him. The king was God's representative on earth. Macbeth, as I mentioned, was probably written for presentation at King James's court. And James, as we know, liked to think of himself as a direct descendant of Banquo, one of the chief characters of the play. Thus James would have taken great pleasure in the downfall of a man, Macbeth, who dared to kill a king, the Lord's anointed. There is, however, an interesting point here. When the play opens, the kingdom of Scotland is in grave danger. Decisive battles are raging, battles in which King Duncan, too old to fight, has taken no part. Duncan's eldest son, Malcolm, appears to be something of a weakling. About to be captured, he has been rescued by a good and hardy soldier. But at last, the war is won, the kingdom secure, thanks chiefly to Scotland's three greatest thanes, Macbeth, Banquo, and from the battle in Fife, Macduff. All three have journeyed to the palace to receive Duncan's praises. But Duncan, after bestowing lavish thanks, then goes on to do rather a strange thing. He decides that here and now, surrounded by the great generals whose courage saved the kingdom, is the time to name his successor to the crown. Any one of the three men is eligible and worthy to be chosen. But who does Duncan name? In this scene, let us see Duncan portrayed not as he usually is, as a great and wise king possessed of all the king-becoming graces, but as a man of wayward arrogance, corrupted by power, almost if not quite senile.
Sons, kinsmen, thanes, and you whose places are the nearest, know we will establish our estate upon our eldest Malcolm, whom we name hereafter the Prince of Cumberland.
Now, I don't say, mind you, that Shakespeare's company would have presented King Duncan as a corrupt monarch at James's court. I do say, however, that such an interpretation, subtly hinted at, I feel, in the text, gives added edge and bite to the story, for reasons you will soon see. You will have noticed that I've included the nobleman Macduff in that scene. In most Shakespearean tragedies and histories, there are usually two antagonists whose opposition makes up one of the principal threads of the story. In scene after scene, the conflict between them mounts almost unbearably until at the end they confront each other in a terrible life and death struggle. So it is in Hamlet, with Hamlet and the king, and so it ought to be with Macbeth and Macduff. The character of Macduff, however, is curiously neglected. His part seems underwritten, almost as though scenes are missing. For the Shakespearean director, who must mount a production in which the storyline is clearly delineated, this presents a problem. David Garrick, the great 18th century actor-manager, thought he had solved it in this way.
This for my royal master, Duncan. This for my bosom friend, my wife. And this for the pledges of her love and mine, my children. Tis dark. The scene of life will quickly close. Ambitions vain, delusive dreams are fled. And now I wake to darkness, guilt, and horror. I dare not ask for mercy. It is too late. Hell drags me down. I sink. I sink. My soul is lost forever.
If you have already read Macbeth, you will recognize that these lines are not Shakespeare's. They were, of course, written by Garrick, who played Macbeth. Not only has he given lines to Macduff in which he sums up his grievances against Macbeth, he has provided himself a star with a dying speech on stage. whereas in the original text, Macbeth is killed off stage. In my view of the tragedy of Macbeth, the conflict between Macbeth and Macduff must be clearly stated from the beginning and clearly delineated as the play unfolds. Macbeth and Macduff must be presented on a certain level as symbols, together with the great nobleman Banquo, symbols of the king becoming graces, those qualities which made up what the Elizabethans considered to be a perfect king. Banquo is the courtier, a diplomat, and, as we shall see, a compromiser. Macbeth, courageous, honorable, we are told, loved well by Macduff, and more important, imaginative and ambitious. Macduff is the soul of loyalty. He is, we are told, noble, wise, judicious, a man who places love of country above all. Taken all together in one man, these qualities would make up a perfect king. Separately, they lead to tragedy. Macduff's sense of loyalty, we find, leads to the death of his wife and children. Banquo's diplomacy leads to his destruction, and Macbeth's imagination, perverted and finally diseased, results not only in his own death, but his country's near ruin. This, then, is the shape, the form, I would delineate on a political level. On this level, Macbeth is a play about power, power relationships, the politics of power, if you will. This, I believe, was Shakespeare's intention. The existing text, however, presents a problem, tends to cloud the issues. In the first act, for example, when the relationships between the king, Macbeth, Banquo, and Macduff should be set forth. We do see the king receive the news of the great bravery shown by Macbeth and Banquo in their fight against the rebels, but so far, no word of Macduff. Then, two messengers greet the king with news of another battle on the same day.
Whence camest thou, worthy Thane? From Fife, great king, where the Norwegian banners flout the sky and fan our people cold. Norway himself, with terrible numbers, assisted by that most disloyal traitor, the Thane of Cawdor, began a dismal conflict, till that Bellona's bridegroom lacked in proof.
Bellona's bridegroom. Here a footnote is necessary. Bellona is the Roman goddess of war. Her bridegroom, obviously a great warrior, is generally taken to refer to Macbeth. But these messengers are from Fife, Macduff's home. Macbeth has been fighting in Inverness, or near to it. He can hardly have taken part in two widely separated battles on the self-same day. In fact, in a later scene we hear that he is ignorant of the second battle, ignorant of the Thane of Cawdor's treachery. The Thane of Cawdor lives, he says, a prosperous gentleman. It is my contention, therefore, that the reference to Bellona's bridegroom is intended to be Macduff. Thus, I would alter the line, till that Bellona's bridegroom lapped in proof, to
Till that Bellona's bridegroom, brave Macduff, confronted him with self-comparisons, point against point, rebellious, arm against arm, curbing his lavish spirit, and to conclude, the victory fell on us. Aye!
Great happiness.
Now, why is the king troubled? He must be happy to know that the Norwegian forces have been defeated. But he is a king, and he would not be pleased to hear that a mere mortal, Macduff, had dared to engage in single combat with the King of Norway, another of God's representatives on earth. Thus we see again Duncan's arrogance, the wayward arrogance of a man in supreme power, a man who actually believes in his own godlike image. And because of this, he rewards not Macduff, but Macbeth with Cawdor's title.
No more that Thane of Cawdor shall deceive our bosom interest.
Go, pronounce his present death. And with his former title, greet Macbeth.
I'll see it done. Forward!
worthiest cousin, the sin of my ingratitude even now was heavy on me. Thou art so far before that swiftest wing of recompense is slow to overtake thee. Only we have left to say, more is thy due than more than all can pay.
The service and the loyalty I owe in doing it pays itself. Your Highness' part is to receive our duties.
Welcome, Macbeth. I have begun to plant thee, and will labour to make thee full of growing. Noble Banquo, that hast no less deserved and must be known no less to have done so. Let me enfold thee and hold thee to my heart.
There if I grow, the harvest is your own.
My plenteous joys, wanton in fullness, seek to hide themselves in drops of sorrow. Sons, kinsmen, babes, and you whose places are the nearest, know we will establish our estate upon our eldest, Malcolm, whom we name hereafter the Prince of Cumberland.
Prince of Cumberland. That is a step on which I must fall down, or else all leap. For in my way it lies.
Mark that Macduff has noticed Macbeth's reaction to the king's words. Thus we lay the groundwork early on for the final life and death struggle between them in the last act. Let us trace then, with these thoughts in mind, the relationships of these three men, Macbeth, Banquo, and Macduff. First, Macbeth and Banquo, the great generals, victorious, exultant, weary, coming from strange images of death, and now lost in the darkness and the fog.
Foul, fair day, I have not seen. How far is called a forest? What are these? So withered and so wild in their attire. I look not like the inhabitants of the earth, and yet aren't. Live you, or are you aught that man may question? You seem to understand me by each at once her choppy finger laying upon her skinny lips.
Speak if you can. What are you?
Hail, Macbeth. Hail to thee, Thane of glass.
All hail, Macbeth. Hail to thee, Thane of Cawdor.
All hail, Macbeth, that shalt be king hereafter.
But, sir, why do you start and seem to fear things that do sound so fair? In the name of truth, are ye fantastical? Or that indeed which outwardly ye show? My noble partner you greet with present grace, and great prediction of noble having and of royal hope. That he seems rapt withal. To me you speak not. If you can look into the seeds of time and say which grain will grow and which will not, speak then to me, who neither beg nor fear your favors nor your hate.
Hail!
Hail!
Hail! Lesser than Macbeth and greater.
Not so happy, yet much happier.
Thou shalt get kings, though thou be none. So all hail Macbeth and Banquo.
Banquo and Macbeth, all hail!
Stay, you imperfect speakers, tell me more. By Sinol's death I know I'm Thane of Glamis, but how of Cawdor? The Thane of Cawdor lives, a prosperous gentleman. Speak, I charge you!
The earth hath bubbles as the water has, and these are of them. Whither are they vanished?
Into the air. And what seemed corporal melted as breath into the wind. Would they had stayed.
Were such things here as we do speak about? Or have we eaten on the insane root that takes the reason prisoner?